Yeah, I want to add to that. I mean, I love you're adding a whole nother dimension with the podcast to lift up our stories. And I will say that reimagining the book
Mm.
as a touring museum exhibition, The Soul of Philanthropy, has taken it to a whole nother level in terms.
Hello, this is Baron J, the host of the Giving While Black podcast. You know why we're here to uplift, amplify, and celebrate Black philanthropists, people of color who are doing amazing things in their community each and every day. I'm so excited about this guest because we go back a few years. And I'm so happy to have Valaida Fullwood here with us. Her remarkable journey of philanthropy, you just have to hear her story. And I'm excited to have you here, Valaida. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Baron.
Absolutely. There's so many things I want to get into with Valaida. I'm excited to have this conversation. So let's kind of start. Valaida, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, a native of North Carolina, and work as a consultant in the philanthropic realm. And as I tell folks, joining a giving circle changed my life.
Yeah. So joining a giving circle. Now that's an interesting concept. You know, as I talk about, I'm a philanthropic coach, and so we help people align their giving with their deepest values. And I mentioned the word concept as a vehicle that they can use, but they don't really know what that is. Tell us a little bit more about what is a giving circle.
Yeah, a giving circle can look a variety of ways. And then I think of it as kind of like a book club. It's a group of people with shared values who come together, our case, pool our dollars to give back and have an impact in our communities. And they can be as informal or as structured and formal as you might want. But the core being a group of people giving together.
Awesome. I love that. We're going to put a pin in that and then we're going to come back to it. But I want to get to know you a little bit more before the Giving Circle kind of started. We know that changed your life, but what were you doing prior to that and how did you kind of get involved with the philanthropy?
Yeah. Well, I often say my first passion in life was anything and everything global and cultural. I mean, I love foreign languages, foreign people, foreign places, foreign foods. I'm just totally obsessed and intrigued by and curious about places around the globe. Ever since as long as I can remember, like at 3 years old,
Wow.
and was fortunate to have an opportunity to be a foreign exchange student in high school.
Okay.
And I was placed with a family in La Paz, Bolivia,
Mm.
and which at the time was the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So it was quite an awakening for a small town North Carolina young woman to go to a capital in Latin America, and to live with a family, a large family, and to not speak the language, and
Yeah.
to, or at least I didn't speak the language when I went. I had studied French all through high school and presumed I'd get placed in a French-speaking country. It wasn't the
Uh-huh.
case. And it ended up being a huge blessing. It just opened my eyes and made me even more curious about the world and what other places that most people were unfamiliar with existed that I might explore in my life. I was inspired to focus and major in international affairs and economics at UNC Chapel Hill. And people would often ask, well, what are you going to do with that? And I would say, I don't know. I mean, I want to work for international company or international business and travel the world. And lo and behold, right out of school, like a week out of graduation, I had an opportunity to interview with General Electric to get the dream job that I didn't even know existed,
Wow.
and ultimately landed with the company, and for about a decade managed international development projects around the globe, World Bank funded projects,
Yeah.
USAID funded projects, and in Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean. So that was what I've been doing right off the bat. Whole philanthropy nonprofit realm was
Yeah.
off my radar.
Wow, wow, wow. So you have this rich kind of tapestry of experiences. Just to tell you all that Valaida is very well known as a storyteller all around the country. And I can see now how some of that storytelling was kind of shaped through your experiences.
You're right. You're right. I never thought about it that way, but I believe you have a point. And that's
Yeah.
what my family has always said since I was a little girl. They pegged me as, a storyteller, the one to recount some experience that we'd had.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you see philanthropy growing up in your own home, Valaida?
Yes, of course. It was all around
Yeah.
in terms of my parents' involvement in the community and the ways they gave back. My aunts, my great aunts, pretty much everybody around me was civically engaged and philanthropically engaged and definitely plugged in at church and quite active with clubs and trustee boards and choirs, Sunday school in church.
Yeah.
And so having that backbone of family experiences and exposure, and then that translated into Girl Scouts and
Okay.
our community service and volunteer opportunities. And it just kept snowballing. It was just part of the way of life, just
Yeah.
part of the culture.
So, and I love that word culture because historically we have been known for giving. And a part of this show, we're trying to continue to ignite that in our communities. So you was growing up, you saw this in your own life. Did you see yourself as a philanthropist though?
I don't even think I knew the word. No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So when was that kind of aha moment when you had this declaration that I am a philanthropist?
Oh, wow. That took a while. After my work in the international realm, and I'd been living in Europe and decided I wanted to come back to North Carolina. At least that's where my roots were. If my work abroad had ended, I didn't want to go back to Philadelphia where I was living. While that had been great, North Carolina was where I had family and
Yeah.
history and roots. So I made a cold move back here and hoped to translate my international experience into a job here. That didn't happen per se, but I did end up in the philanthropic realm. My foray was with an education foundation here as a program director, and had the benefit of learning a lot about not only Charlotte as a community, but about grant making and grant seeking and managing projects in our community to affect change. And so that was my intro to philanthropy. And as
Yeah.
part of that work, I was invited to join the board of the African American Community Foundation here. And that's when I got to see the grant making process and the whole cycle and review and selection of grantee partners in the community. And in fact, it was at one of the board meetings
Mm-hmm.
that Ethan Lindsay and Daryl
Yeah.
Lester were
Yeah.
guest speakers. And that was the first time I'd heard the term uttered, Black philanthropy.
Wow.
And hearing that just
Yeah.
resonated with me in such a visceral way.
Yeah.
And hence, all these years later, I've never forgotten that moment I first heard that phrase.
Yeah. That's so powerful. Shout out to Ethan and Daryl, the pioneers in this space. I'm actually going to get them on the show eventually. But that's powerful. So you gained your first kind of experience at this foundation. What did you learn about philanthropy? Some of the
Oh,
lessons you
wow.
learned.
How it's not easy to give away money.
Yeah,
There's so
yeah.
many
It
different
seems like it
factors.
is, but it's not as easy as
It's
people
not
think.
that easy.
Yeah,
Whether it's your money, especially when it's your money, but even when it's somebody else's money, it's not that easy. I learned having skin in the game and having it be your money is a whole nother thing than making decisions about somebody else's money or a
yeah,
foundation or endowment's money.
Yeah.
And I learned the power of giving. I really saw it in action. I saw the impact it can have on particularly Black-led, Black-founded, smaller
Yeah.
grassroots organizations in our community. Um, and I learned that it's not always the dollar amount that matters the most. Sometimes it's just the acknowledgement, the recognition, even with some smaller dollars or smaller grants. Um, it's the connections and relationships that can develop out of a grant, making a grant.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because it's so true. You know, we provide scholarships. We have a foundation called the BK Damon Foundation, and so we provide scholarships. We give out grants, business grants to young people. We support missionaries all over the world, and we also have support youth development projects. And I remember us giving away a $500 scholarship to this young man, and Valaida, he started crying like a baby. You know, he cried and he cried. He was trying to get himself together. And it kind of took us back a little bit. But in that moment, I realized it wasn't just a scholarship, but it was about hope. We gave him hope because that was his first scholarship. And he went on to get an $80,000 scholarship from Tufts University. You know, so what you're talking about is so true. There's something very powerful about the recognition. We're just recognizing other people
Yeah.
efforts
And
and
just saying, I see you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
believe
yeah,
in you.
yeah, yeah, and that's so important. And so now you've heard Ethan and Daryl talk, and you like, wow, this whole concept around Black philanthropy. I want to learn more about this. I'm in. What was the next steps? Did you just turn your back and say, "Oh, that sounds good then," but how about now? What's the next step for you?
Yeah, well, some things are happening simultaneously. I was on the board of that community found the African American Community Fund,
Mm-hmm.
but also I'd gotten involved with a philanthropic leadership program that our community foundation was hosting.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the Impact Fund, and at the time they were inviting young professionals to be a part of a 8 or 9 month program where you contributed $500 and your $500 was matched with another $500, and
Yeah.
you ended up with all the members a pool of around $40,000. And then you could choose an interest area, and my interest area was, I think it was economic self-sufficiency,
Okay.
and there were 9 other people who shared that interest. So our pool of dollars was $10,000, for
Yeah.
representing each of us.
Yeah.
And then together we decided our mission, what impact we wanted to have. And then we developed an RFP,
Okay.
and we invited nonprofits in the 14 county region
Mm-hmm.
who were doing work around self-sufficiency to apply. And so this program served multiple purposes. One, it allowed this diverse mix of young professionals or professionals under 40 to meet and connect
Yeah.
and network. It allowed the group to learn about our community. Periodically, when we have our monthly meetings,
Mm-hmm.
we invite in speakers, nonprofit leaders, and subject matter experts to come in and talk about housing or economic self-sufficiency
Yeah.
or the arts and culture or historic preservation. And so we learned about all these different nonprofits in the community and issues facing people in our community. And then third, we learned and had skin in the game in this grant making process, this full grant cycle, where we built it up from scratch and reviewed and decided where to invest our dollars. So
Yeah.
it was pretty powerful. While I had worked in the philanthropic realm and had written grants and
Mm-hmm.
managed grant funded projects, having skin in the game
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
such a big difference, and getting a full 365 view of the or excuse me 360 view of the granting process through my work and then this
Right.
involvement. And so then later I became active because I thought it was so powerful of a program. I became part of the leadership there to recruit and manage the programming each year. And I noted that while some of my non-Black friends would immediately sign up and say, yes, I want to be a part of this, would recognize the value of the networking and or the philanthropy and or the affiliation with our community foundation.
Right.
That wasn't always the case with my Black friends. It just seemed it was a harder case to make.
Right.
For folks to come on board and contribute this $500 to be a part of this year-long program. And when Daryl and Ethan spoke at the board meeting, and they were telling us about these Black giving circles that they had helped form across the country, I was so intrigued. I'm like, I've had trouble getting one or two Black friends to be a part of this collective giving program. And you're telling me you have entirely Black circles in Birmingham and Raleigh and Durham. So I was so intrigued. And it took some time, but convinced some of the fellow board members that this is something we should explore.
Right.
And along with some staff at the Community Foundation, we hosted our first gathering, a conversation that Ethan and Daryl helped lead, and NGAP, or New Generation of African American Philanthropists, that seed was planted.
Wow. So NGAP, a given circle, was birthed out of that kind of one conversation. So if you drive down about 2.5 hours in Raleigh, Durham area, we were having a similar conversation where there was some other given circles that was birthed from those same type of conversations. So that was a very exciting time for a lot of us. And those partnerships that came with these community foundations was new territory. There was a lot of challenging conversations during that part. One word that I use a lot, and of course you do, strategy. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy that a given circle uses?
Wow. Somebody told me recently, they noted how I'm always strategizing. I'm not conscious of it. I mean, she was complimenting me on, my strategy or how I look at things. And I guess it's second nature that I'm not even conscious of it. The things she was pointing to, I'm like, I never thought about it that way. So this is an interesting question. Strategy in what sense? Or
in the sense that for given circles, how do they strategize how they help and support their communities? Because there's so many needs, right? I mean, you can just close your eyes and shoot a dart, and there's a need in our communities. How do you strategize around those particular areas?
Yeah, I would say for our circle, a key driving force or strategy from the get-go was elevating our presence as Black givers and Black philanthropists in our community, just our coming together. And the name we chose, which was an homage to next generation of African American philanthropists, the Giving Circle in the Raleigh-Durham area that had existed a few years before us. So just existing was a statement in and of itself. And then, and that was one of the appealing aspects. When we had that initial meeting, people really recognized the value of raising our presence and visibility as Black givers, largely to defy the false notion that Black people don't give. And then second was to direct dollars and resources to nonprofits serving Black communities, and a recognition of the funding gaps and inequities that exist, that our circle could help direct crucial dollars to some of these nonprofits, deserving nonprofits that are having an impact here in Charlotte.
Yeah, you mentioned that's good. You mentioned RFP process, and that's when people can fill out the application and in order to get the funding. And we tried that as a given circle, and it was a little too formal for us at that present time. And then we just started saying, okay, we'll scrap that. We'll just go do site visits or have them come to us, do a presentation, and it worked out perfectly. But I like the structure of an RFP, but there's flexibility in giving circles, right?
Actually, and yeah, very true, which I love that circles are nimble in that way and can be
Mm-hmm.
responsive to their communities as well as their members in what
Yeah.
the values and interests and strategy of their membership. Actually, NGAP never had an RFP. That was with the leadership program I was
Oh,
philanthropic
okay.
leadership program I was a part of.
Okay.
NGAP, instead, we have our members do our due diligence up front and identify Black-led, Black-founded nonprofits who are having impact, and then nominate those, which creates a long list that's been jointly curated by our membership.
Yeah.
And then we invite those nonprofits to apply, in part because our dollars we have available for grants are huge. So we didn't want to do a big y'all come
Yeah.
and have, dozens of nonprofits apply when we only
Right.
had maybe $20,000 at the most
Right.
to grant. So we do this kind of tiered process.
Okay.
And out of the maybe 30 nonprofits that we invite to apply, we maybe 2/3 of them actually submit applications.
Okay.
And over the years, we've worked to simplify the applications so it's not project based, that it's more just general operating support.
Okay.
And over the years, we've sharpened our focus, and what we are looking at in terms of our guidelines are, again, Black founded, Black led, based on the staff membership and the board composition, as well as the communities that are served, or the demographic makeup of the community served being majority Black. And we also have this acronym, Black Organizations Leading Differently. Okay. So while we have interests around issues, across issues, so it's not specifically focused on the arts or economics or housing or education, we're open to it all, but we're looking for organizations that are doing things differently in an innovative way, in a way that explicitly is designed to support predominantly Black people and Black populations, but not exclusively, but a key interest around Black communities.
Okay, that's outstanding. I love this work because it's so important. And we talked offline. This has been 18 years since you've been doing this giving circle.
Yes, we learned a lot and grown a lot.
How y'all been able to maintain it for so long?
Well, one of the keys I attributed to is we say we're a giving circle and a forgiving circle.
Okay.
So we forgive each other, they forgive me, in terms of life happens.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a really stringent organizational structure. It's essentially flat.
Okay.
I step up and help spearhead and serve as a hub for the group, but we're truly a circle, and we don't have officers and that kind of formality. And we just get together, every 6 weeks or so, a lot of times virtually, but we love getting together in person too.
Right.
Try to manage that. And the social part is so key in terms of relationships to each other, and really focusing on the quality of our relationships with each other and less on the quantity of dollars or the number of members that we have. So and you get in where you fit in. If your plate is really full and all you can do is contribute financially for the most part, then that's okay. And we just work like family.
Yeah, the flexibility, because I'm sure you have some intergenerational things going on within the circle. You have people with different backgrounds and all of that, and even incomes, right? And you
All the
have this
above. I
all
mean,
melting pot of people.
yes, yes. And I love that aspect. I used to say our membership spans from 27 to 72, which
Uh-huh.
a couple of years ago was literally the case. And those
Uh-huh.
individuals have had some birthdays in the last 2 years. So
Right.
that number doesn't quite work, but it shows the span of people. So young adults beginning their careers as well as retired professionals. We have, I'd say, maybe a fifth of our membership actually are professionals in philanthropy. So
Okay.
we have retired foundation presidents, current foundation presidents of national organizations, program officers, leading grant makers,
Okay.
with a number of philanthropic organizations and foundations here in Charlotte. And we have wealth managers and accountants and bankers and
Okay.
entrepreneurs and healthcare professionals and teachers, the whole spectrum
Gamut.
of
Yeah.
folks. And
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
informs generationally, professional experience. And in the last couple of years, a number of our members do not live in Charlotte. So
Oh
we have
wow.
members who are based in Newark, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., the Triangle area, Greensboro area. I just got an inquiry from a woman who has roots in Charlotte, but I think lives in Georgia now.
Yeah.
So, people have gravitated to our work and want to be a part of it and see how we can make change.
Yeah. That's powerful. We could talk just the whole show about giving circles because
Indeed.
it's so rich. I want to transition a little bit to you created this incredible work. And I would say, and I'm not just saying that because you're here, I was just fascinated with the Giving Back book, this whole soul of philanthropy that you created, and Charles, your kind of business partner, helped. And I remember I still have the book. I was trying to pull it out of my garage because when I left my full-time job, I haven't been able to transition stuff to my office yet. But I was just amazed at the breadth and depth of this book. Can you talk about this whole journey with the Giving Back book?
Yeah, sure. It has its roots in our giving circle of that first year of forming our circle. I had some thoughts about laments, I should say, about the absence of our stories.
Yeah.
When people speak about philanthropy, the assumption is or historically, or conventionally, the idea has been, as Black people, we're on the receiving side only.
Mhm.
And this is something that Ethan and Daryl led with when they spoke about Black philanthropy. And the fact that we weren't recognized and we're kind of erased from the history and stories, and it leaves the narrative that only uber wealthy, predominantly white people
Yeah.
are philanthropists or can
Yeah.
give back or can lead community change. And that was unsettling to me because I definitely knew another story, had lived another story, been the benefactor of or beneficiary of a lot of Black giving and generosity. And hearing that echoed by our membership as we were forming our circle,
Yeah.
and thought, these are stories that should be lifted up for folks who don't know,
Yeah.
or for folks in the community that don't see this as philanthropy or haven't recognized this as philanthropy,
Yeah.
and to remind us all that we have always been philanthropists. So that's what inspired the book. And in fact, I was at a women's giving or women's philanthropy conference in Seattle years ago. I've lost count how maybe 15 or more years ago, maybe 16 years, when I had the idea, and it was crystal clear what the book would look like,
Yeah.
the mix of photography and stories. and set out to make it happen. And I often joke that in my naivety at the time, I thought it would take a year or so. I get the right photographer to partner with.
Yeah.
And it was tougher going than I thought. And it took us nearly 5 years to
Wow.
compile the book and bring it to a level that we thought was a appropriate tribute to
Yeah.
givers in our community.
Yeah. That's awesome. And now you go around the country sharing this. I remember going to NC State and seeing everything set up. And I was just so proud of you. We served on the board together years ago for the Community Investment Network. And I just remember feeling this sense of pride. Like, that's pretty awesome, because I knew it was such a passion project for you and for Charles. And so now you have this book. Tell me, how did you start getting it out to people? Because you could have just, okay, it's on Amazon now, I hope somebody finds it. What was your kind of strategy to get it out?
Yeah, that was definitely strategy. I would say that I had a friend who had released a book here in Charlotte years prior. And so when I had my book idea, the first thing I did was schedule a coffee meeting with the friend who had published the book before. And I respected his work. And his advice from the get-go was start with the end in mind.
Okay.
So, oftentimes writers and authors get so excited about their writing project or the idea they want to convey and don't really think who their potential audience is or how that story might get out into the public realm and who might be interested in this beyond themselves. So early on, I had outlined a strategy for marketing and for distribution, and it was good fortune. Ultimately, it didn't feel like it at the time, but that the project did take almost 5 years instead of a year. That gave me time to build a following, establish a social media presence, to allow folks to know I was working on this project and build some anticipation. So when the book finally came out, there was already an interested audience and people eager to buy the book and to schedule book talks. So that was a big plus.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I started thinking about this podcast the early part of last year, and Valaida, I was thinking about the things that we see in the news and media. While Black always has a negative connotation, right? And I don't care whether it was walking, driving, running, even bird watching. Come on.
I know, churching,
shopping. You name it. It's literally everything associated with while Black is not good. And I started thinking about what's really positive about us. And I said, if we put giving while Black on some merch and start showing people that we have been philanthropists for centuries, and we have always taken care of each other. And when I started thinking about this project, you were one of the first person I thought about because of the story aspect, right? I want to tell people stories, or I want to hear people's stories that we can share with other people. So thank you for your contribution and being able to share that story with so many people around the country, because it impacted me personally, and I know it impacted a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I mean, I love you're adding a whole nother dimension with the podcast to lift up our stories. And I will say that reimagining the book as a touring museum exhibition, The Soul of Philanthropy, has taken it to a whole nother level in terms of how we can engage with people around these stories. And the beautiful part about the exhibit is that it's a vehicle for community engagement and civic engagement around not only Black giving, but so many facets of philanthropy and questions people have of philanthropy and untold stories, hidden stories and figures in the philanthropic realm in each city or community that we go to. So that's been a really phenomenal part, is to see it snowball.
Yeah.
While the Solar Philanthropy is the core exhibition,
Mm-hmm.
each city that's hosted it has created their own localized version. So it's
Yeah.
to create their own local exhibits, many of them permanent exhibitions that are housed in schools or in public places. And so after the Solar Philanthropy leaves,
Yeah.
3 months or so, that these programs and exhibitions remain locally that continue to tell our stories.
Yeah, absolutely. We were in Jacksonville, Florida I think it was in Florida. It may have been Jacksonville or somewhere in Florida. We went into downtown areas, a huge library, beautiful library. And on the right-hand side of the library, there was this section about just black books, right? And I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And it was sponsored by somebody. I leaned over to my wife and I said, "Honey, this is what I want a part of our legacy to be, right? I want Giving While Black to be in a library somewhere or a museum. And that's part of telling the stories. People can either listen to them or read them. And I love to talk about legacy. I talk a lot about with my clients, how do you live your legacy? You don't have to wait till you're dead for people to figure that out. So tell me about what's the legacy you're living right now? What's important to you?
Oh wow, yeah. It's certainly carrying on these stories and reaching as many diverse audiences
Yeah,
with our stories and inspiring people to think differently and
yeah,
to give differently and engage differently with their community. And particularly as a woman who is child free,
yeah,
that this project, what began as the formation of NGAP and then the Giving Back Project, which produced the book, which gives back to the Giving Circle, and now
yeah,
the exhibition. Um, yeah, all this is, I guess, part of me leaning into my legacy,
yeah,
and certainly feel I've been passed a baton and a sense of responsibility from those great aunts and Girl Scout leaders and church
yeah,
ladies that gave back to me.
yeah. And I hope, Valeda, you are taking time to process that this is your legacy that you are leaving. Because a lot of times we just doing the work. We're just doing the work and we don't take time to kind of celebrate and appreciate. But sister, I appreciate you and the work that you have been doing with your Giving Circle, and even before then, to educate people, empower people around philanthropy. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is my baby. I mean, you mentioned NGAP. We're going into our 18th year. So
Yeah.
my baby's 18 years old.
Yeah. So I don't want to keep you too long. So we're gonna shift a little bit. I have some rapid fire questions for you. All right.
Okay.
2 minutes. They're fast, they're easy. So let's see how you do. All right.
All right.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. The first question is, how much money do you have to be a philanthropist?
It zero. Even
Zero.
with
There you
that.
go. We talk about time, talent, treasure, right?
Yes.
What is your proudest moment as a philanthropist?
Oh my gosh. It has to be the work with NGAP and
Yeah,
just seeing it mushroom all these years. I mentioned earlier to you that this past year we had 11 new members join our
yeah,
circle, which is the most in a single year. So um, just seeing folks, the stick to itness
yeah,
and the relationships that exist among us or that have formed among us is something to really be proud of, and how our membership collectively leans into to giving.
yeah. That's powerful. What was the hardest thing you ever gave away? What's the hardest thing you ever gave away?
Oh my. Well, the thing that comes to mind was early on in Barack Obama's political campaign,
Uh-huh.
his inaugural run in 2007, 2006, sometime around there, when folks had no faith in him. and there was a fundraising event, a political fundraising event here in Charlotte, and it was $1,000 to be a part of it, and that was a stretch for me. Then, even now,
Yeah.
but I made that commitment. I just
Okay.
thought, when posterity looks back, how could I not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
invest in this man's success?
Yeah. So $1,000. Wow, that was awesome. What is the best gift you ever received?
Oh, wow. I would say I just shared something with somebody today, so this is top of mind. Um, I got an award back in 2022 from a group called uh, Fabulous Fundraising Females.
Okay.
And they were recognizing women givers and fundraisers and looking nationally and even into Canada, and selected three folks that they recognized, and I was one of them. And while I'd received awards and recognition, you know, in the past over the last decade from a number of groups, this was the first group that actually provided a cash award. And
Oh,
the cash
wow.
award was modest, but the fact that this small group recognized the value of the recognition, but then also the investment in my work, was very meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. The movie said we like the money that folds, right? It's good to have that as well. What is the best thing you like about being a philanthropist? What's the best thing you like about it?
Oh, the need to stay on your toes, to know your community, and to have relationships so that um, you know how best, or how to make decisions about where the money goes, where your money goes. I mentioned earlier, giving away money is not as easy as maybe people think. And especially when you don't have a vast amount of dollars to give, and your precious few dollars that you want to give back matters a lot. You want to feel good about where it goes. And for me, that requires staying in the know, staying connected, recognizing some of the barriers that groups and causes experience, and how your dollars can help unlock new possibilities for a group.
Yeah, I love that. Unlock new possibilities. What is your dream philanthropic gift? If you had all the money, what would it be? What would your dream philanthropic gift be?
Oh my. It would be investing in the work NGAP has lined up ahead. I mentioned we're 18, we're about to turn 20 in 2026, and we're on a path to create our own philanthropic entity, an independent entity to evolve from our giving circle status. And it would be to be able to make a huge dollar investment in the creation of this new fund that we're calling the New Trust.
Oh, all right. Well, we're gonna have to keep that on top of mind for you to get that, be able to donate significant amount of money to the trust. And last question is, what is your favorite charity and why?
I'm like a one-note person. I mean, my favorite philanthropic entity is NGAP, my giving circle, and investments in us to help advance the work of and accelerate the work of Black-led, Black-founded nonprofits here in Charlotte.
Well, thank you, Valaida. It wasn't rapid, but it was rich.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you tell us how can we get in contact with you?
Oh, wow. You can find me at valaida.com, VALAIDA.com. My contact information is there. Some of my stories are there. So
wonderful.
Anyway.
Are you going to be speaking somewhere soon, or you have an exhibit somewhere that people can?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The Solar Philanthropy is currently in New Orleans.
Okay.
We'll be there through the end of this month. It's being hosted by the TEP Center, which is located in the lower 9th Ward. And this summer, the Solar Philanthropy is opening in Little Rock, Arkansas, at the Templars Mosaic Cultural Center.
Wow.
Mosaic Templars Cultural Center.
Everyone, you have to go out and follow Valaida's work. Absolutely incredible. And we're so excited about this 18-year-old plus journey. I love to say that's just getting started. There's so much more work to do. And part of this podcast, we want to spur people on to continue to do the work. So Valaida Fullwood, we celebrate you for the work that you're doing. And we do something on this show, and we ask the people that's on the show just to pronounce and say, I am a philanthropist. Can you do that for us?
I certainly can. I am a philanthropist.
Yes, you are. Yes, you absolutely are. And we're so excited to present Valaida's story to you all. And there's so much more that we couldn't unpack, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to reach out to her, gain more information about giving circles and the impact that you can make through these philanthropic vehicles. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, and we would love for you to pass this information and video on to the next person, because we know how impactful this work is, and we're here to uplift, amplify, and celebrate Black philanthropy, and we're celebrating Valaida today. Thank you again, Valaida, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Baron.